independently. On the other, reports suggest that the strike was actually greenlit after coordination between PM Benjamin Netanyahu and White House, aimed at deterring Iran from disrupting oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. There are also details of urgent back-channel calls between US officials and Qatar after the strike, with Doha seeking clarity on whether Washington was aware. This is not a minor gap. This is a direct conflict between public position and reported action. Listen in to US Secretary of War Pete Hexit.
Yesterday at Dover Air Force Base, President Trump, the chairman, and I stood in solemn silence as heroes came home. Flag-draped caskets, we honored them. We grieved with their families, and we listened. What I heard through tears, through hugs, through strength, and through unbreakable resolve was the same from family after family. They said, finish this. Honor their sacrifice. Do not waver. Do not stop until the job is done. My response, along with that of the president, was simple. Of course, we will finish this. We will honor their sacrifice. Their sacrifice only steals our commitment.
Now understand what was struck. South Pars is the largest natural gas field in the world, jointly shared by Iran and Qatar. Any attack here is not contained to one country. It automatically risks dragging in a key US ally, and that is exactly what followed. Iran retaliated by targeting LNG infrastructure in Qatar, including Ras Laffan, escalating the conflict beyond Iran and Israel into broader Gulf. President Trump has maintained that the United States knew nothing about the strike and that Israel acted out of anger. He has also issued a strong warning to Iran, saying that any further attack on Qatar's energy infrastructure would invite massive retaliation from Washington. But that raises even a bigger question. If the US had no role, why issue the warning? And if it did have a role, why deny it? The consequences of that one strike are already visible. Iran has expanded its retaliation beyond direct targets and issued warnings across the Gulf. Energy infrastructure is now under threat across multiple countries. The battlefield has widened and the risks have multiplied. And in midst of all this, Iran's fiercest retaliation yet, US claimed that it is yet to launch the largest strike package on Tehran.
Our objectives, given directly from our America First president, remain exactly what they were on day one. These are not the media's objectives, not Iran's objectives, not new objectives, our objectives. Unchanged, on target, and on plan. Destroy missiles, launchers, and Iran's defense industrial base so they cannot rebuild. Destroy their navy, and Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Our objectives from day one. That is overwhelming force applied with precision. And again, today will be the largest strike package yet, just like yesterday was. As I've said from day one, our capabilities continue to build, Iran's continue to degrade. We're hunting and striking death and destruction from above.
So here are the big questions. Did the United States silently approve the South Pars strike? Why does President Trump's version contradict emerging reports? Has Israel dragged the US into a deeper conflict? And can Washington still rein in Israel's military decisions? And finally, is the region now on the brink of a wider war? On this issue, I'm joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, Professor Swaran Singh, and Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan. Let me straight away go to General Chauhan. Sir, my question is very simple. Is America following the red lines of Israel, or are these red lines their red lines?
Good evening, Karthik. That's a very difficult question, because the idea that America and the American president has said that he did not know about this is either because it is politically, it will affect him politically, or it is going to affect his closest allies in the Gulf, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Oil fields are on fire. Oil fields are on fire create huge mayhem in the entire West Asia. And to say that we knew nothing while strike on Iran's South Pars gas oil complex is amazing. But the multiple reports, Reuters, Israeli officials suggest quite the opposite, as you said, that the US had prior knowledge, or at least had tacit approval. and that coordination was at the highest level, though not a direct. So this is classic plausible deniability. I think Washington is trying to avoid a direct escalation with Iran. That's a very important thing. It's trying to reassure Gulf allies. It's trying to also benefit from Israeli pressure on Iran. So these are the issues that probably America has in mind right now. Avoid direct confrontation on the oil infrastructure because it knows how sensitive the Gulf allies are on their oil. Because it also knows that if the Iranian oil fields were set on fire, Iran would do the same to the West Asian allies, and that's exactly what they've done. So herein lies the complexity of this particular war. Now, will this war widen? I have no doubt that it will widen. Will it include the superpowers? I doubt very much that China and Russia will come into this war. But definitely at a Qatar, Saudi Arabia, uh, Abu Dhabi, and all the other uh, smaller West Asian countries are already in this.
Ambassador Sikri, first, Americans wanted to dismantle the regime. The words like "mow the lawn" were used. Then they wanted to take out the nuclear bomb. Then they wanted to take down the missiles. Tulsi Gabbard says that they had no idea, and the previous operation had taken down the nuclear infrastructure. But Iran has some missiles which can reach the coast of the United States of America, which I would assume is an ICBM. But Iran does not have a proper ICBM; they have IRBMs. So has the objective of the war become very, very fuzzy?
You know, the objectives of the war were never clear to start with. We all know that America was forced into this war under pressure from Israel. And because President Trump's own key advisors, General Kane and his other key military advisors, were strongly recommending against American involvement in the war for a series, for a number of reasons, including the fact that they are themselves running low on missiles and other weaponry because of what they have been giving to Israel and Ukraine over the last 3 years. So I think the getting into the war seems to have been under direct pressure from Israel. There is little doubt about that. Now, as we can see, the sudden step to step up to widen the rampage of the war, to extend the war now to direct attacks on oil visible deniability, because CENTCOM and the Israel Air Force are supposed to be operating in tandem, and they could not have launched this one strike, and you cannot say that for one particular strike that in tandem operation has been suspended or something like that. That's completely implausible. So obviously there's some very much knowledge of the Americans, but they want now to deny because of the world's response and Iran's own response. They have not only said they will launch attacks on oil facilities in the Gulf, but they've actually done it. They've carried it out with Qatar, and there's a huge reaction to that. I think that one has to really talk about this whole plausibility of whether America is able to rein in Israel. The public opinion in America is rapidly increasingly turning against US involvement in this war, and it is combined with increasing animosity towards Israel. And I think that President Trump is now more actively seeking an off-ramp, as they call it, seeking some kind of an exit. And I think this is what we have to focus on now. I think here there are two key aspects that we look at. The Gulf countries, obviously they're in close touch with the President of the US. What is their advice? Are they going along with America's objectives to finish off Iran's nuclear facility, missile facility, defense objectives, and even, of course, on Karg Island, as we know that America has destroyed all
Correct.
the non-oil facilities. I think that is that what the Gulf leaders are advising President Trump, or are they putting pressure on President Trump to bring an end to this war and to really call it off? I think the closure of the Straits of Hormuz is another very important step that Iran has taken and has increased the pressure on President Trump to find a solution. Long-term solution to keep the Strait of open under all circumstances. He's offering a peaceful outweigh a way out of this conflict. So I think that we have to focus on this off-ramp. And I think here India's role is very important, because a lot of the world leaders, even within America, public opinion and other, they're talking about India. The latest is the spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Ministry has again said that India must take a lead in this. India, as you know, we have the presidency of BRICS this year. And in any case, as the chairperson of BRICS, we are finding a way out, a statement that will be acceptable to all the members. I think this is the time now, and we cannot wait anymore to find an off-ramp for this terrible conflict, which is going to have catastrophic consequences, including the beginning of World War III, if we are not already there.
Okay, Professor Sorensen, a lot of people would like to know, Americans and Israelis have close relationship, but what is this disproportionate influence which Benjamin Netanyahu enjoys on Donald Trump? I mean, so this is a disproportionate influence he has on White House.
That's true. There could be multiple ways of explaining that rather close proximity that became a public spectacle almost from the first term of President Trump, continued even during President Joe Biden, and now again out in open. But I think it's primarily because the threats from Iran are seen very differently from Tel Aviv and from Washington, D.C. And it's a clear understanding that Netanyahu was willing to go on striking Iran, even if United States was not going to join it. And history shows that one after another, there are examples when Israel has unilaterally hit neighbors. You would remember Osirak being hit in 1981, 2007, Syria, Lebanon again and again, now again, for example. So, Trump had a clear understanding, and they have said it publicly, that if they were not joining Netanyahu's strikes of Iran, Netanyahu would have gone on his own in that sense. But fundamentally, the difficulty now is, as Ambassador just now said, Ambassador Sikri is saying there is no exit strategy. The new supreme leader, Mojtaba, has clearly has said that they will end the war on their own terms. And because there is not any clear strategy, Trump has compulsion to continue even escalating, but he's also coming under pressure. For example, the recent resignation that we saw of Joe Kent, director of National Counterterrorism Center, openly criticizing Trump's strategy and getting into this war. And that sentiment is writ large across United States power elite, among his countries in Middle East, in Europe, and so on. And therefore, I think this intentional ambiguity of distancing, from the strikes by Israel in that sense, could be to, say that, he is not pushing ahead for escalation, and that would assuage some sentiments in the region of Middle East region of his Arab allies in that sense. But at the same time, it is not expected that United States did not know of it. So therefore, there are structural factors that are putting